Hi, journeyers. Welcome to a journey through NYC Religions Television. I'm your host, Tony Carnes. Recently, the New York Times headline, "What Museums Don't Reveal About Religious Art." Very interesting article. It says too many museums portray religious art as some historical object of long fascination, but not personal relevance or political or even spiritual relevance. That was an interesting question. And I wondered how the people over at New York Encounter would answer this question. We have here today to explain what New York Encounter is and how they might answer this question is Riro Maniscalco. Welcome to the program, Riro.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
You know, this Times article was a review of two exhibits, one at Columbia University and another at the Cloisters, and actually is a line of several exhibits that have been going on over the last couple of years in New York that focuses that art is more than just something on the wall. It can be something about your life, about your spiritual life. How does an encounter address art? I notice you have a big portion of art in your coming up. So first, let me ask you, what is New York Encounter? And then how do you try to bring art into people's lives?
Well, in itself, New York Encounter, as we always state, is an annual 3-day public cultural event that we bring in the heart of New York City. But we bring it with a purpose. I mean, we're all volunteers. There's nothing else at the core of the encounter than the desire to express gratitude for life and to show the richness and beauty of life, which is in this world, sometimes well hidden. So it is a cultural event, but I'm the chairman and I'm not an intellectual by any means. I'm just an ordinary human being, a husband, a father, a grandfather, and but somebody who tries to follow the encounter with Christ that has marked my life at age 19 and has been unfolding for the years which followed. So New York Encounter is just an expression of gratitude for life, a hymn, if you wish, to the beauty of life, and it's offered in a form of exhibits, conferences, presentations, shows, because everything can speak of the beauty and the meaning of life. And particularly, there's this sensibility towards beauty, because the way we've been educated in the encounter with the experience of communal liberation is that, as Dostoevsky has one of his famous characters say, beauty will save the world. There is something that goes straight to the heart, no matter what your religious beliefs are, if any, but there's a heart in everybody which can be touched and can be certainly touched by beauty. Art is a powerful tool to convey this beauty, this sense of beauty, this need of beauty, for beauty. So, from the way we set up the place, to the way we serve food, to the shows we offer, the presentations and the exhibits that we offer, we try to show this reflection of beauty. That's our attempt.
Now, let me ask you, let me remind people, this conference is coming up, is that right?
Yes, Friday the 18th through Sunday the 20th of February. So it's around the corner.
And what's the title of the conference?
This Urge for the Truth. we always try to find a theme which is provoking and challenging, you know.
And how can people, where is it, the conference at?
It's the Metropolitan Pavilion, which is on 18th Street, 125 West in Manhattan. And
And how,
we will open our doors at 6:30 on Friday evening, and we will be open through Sunday evening.
now, and how can people find out more about this conference and about the logistics of registering and getting to the conference and the program?
Well, we have a website, New York Encounter, just one word, newyorkencounter.org.
NewYorkEncounter.org. Is it the letters NY or is it spelled out New York?
Spelled, you got to spell it all out,
Okay.
newyorkencounter.org. And there you can find the program, and also a reminder that obviously we're going to comply with whatever rules and regulations the city of New York asks for, you know, when it comes to attending big events in a venue, in an indoor venue. So proof of vaccination and that kind of stuff.
And what kind of beautiful things will people encounter at this encounter?
Well, I would dare saying that the first beautiful thing that people encounter and stepping into the encounter is the people itself. You will find a population which somehow is like a slice of the real world, people from all walks of life, all ages. Even this year, with all the, you know, the difficulties due to the virus, we will have about 300 volunteers, mostly youngsters, which make the event possible. Not one single person working at the encounter is paid. Not even our guests receive a stipend or anything. We invite people gratuitously to offer and receive gratuitously. So that somehow hits you right away. As you enter the pavilion, you will see that. There's a sense of gladness, which doesn't ring fake. It's just a sense of gratitude, because, you know, a grateful heart is a heart full of gladness, and that shows in your face. So that is very visible, I would say. And then, of course, I mean, you start checking the names, the panelists, the speakers, and you find big names. I mean, journalists like Keith or Rosenstiel, Francis Collins, who was the former director of the NIH, David Brooks, editorialist for the New York Times, and many other things. Brian Stevenson, I don't know if you happen to see that movie, Just Mercy, is the guy behind that story. I mean, people, we have learned to ask, you know, to invite. We look around, we look for signs of hope and testimonies of desire for life. We pick up the phone, we call, we tell them, you know, daringly, if you wish, would you come to New York for free to share with thousands of people your experience? And they accept. That's how
now, this event comes out of a social religious movement. Can you tell us a little bit about the movement that is behind, or the current that's behind this encounter, and how did you come in contact with it?
Sure. The group of us that works all year round to put together the encounter, each one of us is associated with this Catholic movement called Communion and Liberation, which is a movement that an Italian priest started in 1954 in Milan, Italy, Father Luigi Josani. But it started as a simple relationship between a religion teacher and his students. because Father Josani, a young priest back then, was fascinated by faith as an expression, actually, in the apex of reason, not something detached from real life and our understanding of reality. So it started as a friendship between a teacher and a handful of students.
Now, let me interject here because you brought this up and it really caught my attention. You yourself experienced Father Josani in college. Tell me a little bit how that happened, and did you grow up on fire for Jesus Catholic, or how did you approach the Father?
Well, I'm 67 years old. People my age, Italians, we're all born and raised Catholic.
Right.
And most people my age, once they got to, those teenage years, dropped out of the church for a total lack of interest in what the church seemed to be saying.
Now, you grew up in what town?
It's a small beach town on the Adriatic Sea. Italy looks like a boot. The east side, about 100 miles south of Venice. Pesaro is the name of my home.
Okay. Yes.
And so, I lost interest completely also because it looked like the church was focusing on moral aspects of life and took pleasure at forbidden things, which as a teenager you were very fascinated by. So I dropped out of the church, and then I found myself looking for something, and I bumped into this movement. People who were living this experience called communal liberation, and I decided to explore. I was about to go to college, so I asked my parents to let me go to Milan because I knew that this guy, Father Josani, was there, and I felt compelled to getting to know him or understand him, if that was really, could possibly be the road I was looking for, the path I was looking for. And when I enrolled,
Right. Well, what was he like?
a steamroller, a man, he was 52 the first time I met him. He had this immense passion for life to the point of not being scared of any human desire, not even the wildest, if you wish, because he would say they're desperate cries for happiness, and everything is a cry for something that you haven't encountered yet. And Christ, but Christ in the flesh, something, a presence that you can encounter in your daily life. So the charism, which the church defines as a gift of the Spirit, was very visible in this man. And I stayed and I never left because the way Christ came to me, and that was through the encounter with Father Josani.
Now, you say Christ was very visible in him. How could you know that? How could you see it? What was palpable there that you say, oh, this person, something different's going on?
Look, as I was saying, I was out of the church. I had no interest.
Right.
So I didn't fall, from a horse. I didn't have any vision, but I was fascinated by the humanity of this man. And I realized in time that that kind of humanity was simply the fruit of his familiarity with Christ. And I started desiring the same thing. And the encounter is just an attempt to offer this kind of gift that we think we have received.
What kind of, can you give me an example of his humanity that struck you?
Well, yes, I remember a conversation I had with him. And I was actually my wife. She was not my wife yet, my girlfriend. I found this girlfriend at the Catholic University, oddly enough, from my hometown. And she was already involved with CL. I was a new kid on the block, pretty wild, certainly not living an orthodox life. But in any case, there was this reciprocal interest. And so my girlfriend goes to Father Josani for spiritual advice, and she tells him, I'm falling for this kid, but it's kind of wild. He doesn't even know. I mean, he told me he knows that we have 7 sacraments only because he loves music and he knows that the number of sacraments is equal to the number of notes. But beyond that, he doesn't know religion at all. He doesn't know anything. And so Father Giussani started asking her, when was the last time you saw him? And she said, yesterday. What did you do? We took a walk. And then we sat on the bench. And then what did you do? And then, the sun went down and the stars began to pop up. And what did he do then? And she said, well, actually, he started pointing out the stars because he knew the constellations, and he was showing me the constellations up there. And so Giussani looks at my wife and says, how can you be afraid of being with somebody who, when he's by himself, by just the two of you, makes you look at the stars? And that was the beginning of what eventually became our family with 3 kids and 10 grandchildren, and lots of friends. But that when she told me that conversation, I said, this is something. There is something. I have to keep searching. I have to keep looking, because I would like to have a humanity like that.
So,
I hope it makes sense. The example.
well, yes. So you started exploring your interest, and you eventually come to America.
Yep.
But when you come to America, you're already a follower of Father Giussani, or at least his way of life.
Yes.
Did you find it hard to practice here in New York City?
No, because actually, coming from a place where the community was well established, we had plenty of activities. The movement in its educational path basically leans on 3 pillars: culture, charity, and mission. So in the life of the community, you always have gestures of culture, gestures of charity, and gestures of mission. I come to New York with my family. It's me and my wife, and there's nothing except, our daily life. So in a sense, I had to, through an experience of poverty, because I was stripped of all the forms which used to make my daily life in Italy, I had to regain them. I mean, I had to ask myself again, is this for real, or it was just a game, or an illusion? And we start making friends, and lots of things happened, all the way up to New York Encounter.
And now you become part of this group that's putting on New York Encounter. What to you, what is the most meaningful part? You've mentioned about the most meaningful part for you, of course, is meeting the people. But it's also an event where you bring people together around certain interests. To you, what is the most exciting thing that's going to be an event or panel or art exhibit or poetry reading? What's the most exciting thing that you are looking forward to in this encounter?
When what I consider the most frequently asked question at the encounter comes up, especially if it comes up from one of the speakers. And the question is, who are you guys? Who are you?
Right.
How is this possible? You don't have resources, you don't have money, you're nobody, I'm nobody, and yet there is something exceptional here. Who are you? Because that's what opens up the door to the possibility of encountering what is at the core of all this, which is our Lord, which is precisely the same dynamic that conquered me in my relationship with Father Josani. How can this man be like this? Not yet. How can it be special? How can the encounter be special? We are believers, and we call the encounter amongst ourselves the work of another. And this another is Jesus Christ, who calls us to offer what we have received. That's all I understand of what we are doing.
Well, let me go through. That's fascinating, and now I understand a little bit. This is a huge event with all sorts of things going on. But now you're telling me what brings it all together. And let me read you some of the events and tell me how Jesus Christ comes out in that. Let me start off on Saturday morning.
Okay.
You have a panel called Politics, a zero-sum game. You have the former governor of Tennessee, a former U.S. congressman, the dean of a college. Politics, a zero-sum game. How has Jesus come out in that?
Well, you may like it or not. I mean, politics, I've never been a big fan of politics myself. We all have our interests and things which do not interest us as much, but it's part of our life. And we've seen how much our country here has been struggling because of politics and the kind of division and, animosity that has provoked in the people here. I live in the Midwest here now, and trust me, that was visible in a pretty ugly way.
Yes, you are there in the Midwest, Minnesota area. That you had this recent police shooting and conflict, and then of course you had George Floyd. What's going on there? Is things just falling apart and people are tearing each other apart? But what is going on?
Well, that's a good question, and I will let you know once I understand a little more. Because honestly, I lived, as I was telling you, I lived in New York City for 26 years, and now 2 years ago I moved to Minnesota. But 2 years, pretty strange years due to the pandemic. So we didn't really have a chance to interact as much as we would like to. So for now, my education tells me to keep my eyes open, my ears open, my heart open, do not fall into preconception, and my mouth a little bit shut until I understand a little more. So
have you seen people in those situations encounter Jesus and come out in a different way?
Yes.
Can you give me an example of that? Because I'm assuming that's something you would like to happen at the New York encounter too.
Well, here, no, I thought you were talking about the New York encounter. Here, honestly, I see lots of people of faith. What is missing, if I can say that, what is missing is a couple of things I see missing. One is the attraction for beauty, the sense of beauty. People work hard. Life is challenging. There's no real sense of beauty, even in the way the cities are, and even in the way the houses are kept. So that's something that should be discovered because it would open up the door to a different relationship amongst people. I'm pretty sure of that. And the other thing is that I think an education is needed, an education to try to judge what's happening in light of our faith. Trying to discover, to understand, asking yourself if your faith can judge what is happening around you, or if it's a separate world, you have your spirituality to manage, and then there's real life, and the criteria to deal with that are completely different.
Vero, we're going to wind up pretty soon, but I know that you say that the communion organization says we're in a new epoch. Are we in an epoch of declining faith, or a rising faith, or a big question mark?
Hope. Father Josani taught us that hope is certainty in the future based on something present now. Now, as long as there's one person of faith, there's hope, because that testimony, sooner than later, will break through the heart of your neighbor, of your co-worker, and the story will begin again.
You know, I want to make sure that we let everybody know that there is an event where they might find that hope. That's New York Encounter. What's the dates it is occurring?
Friday the 18th through Sunday the 20th.
And they can find out about it at what website?
www.newyorkencounter, spell it all out, newyorkencounter.org.
You know, I'm really thank you for coming today. We tried to go deep behind the scenes about where the encounter comes from. My name's Tony Carnes. I'm with A Journey Through NYC Religions Television. Thank you. See you next time.